وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll continue with the book known as Al-Musannaf li Abi Abdullah li Abi Bakr Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 235 after the Hijrah. And we're in the section of the book Kitab al-Tahara, the chapter Man Qala Laysa fil Qublati Wudu. Those who say there is no wudu necessary because of kissing. Those who say there is no wudu necessary because of kissing. Al-Shaykh al-Shithri, rahimahullah ta'ala, obviously when we talk about kissing here, the conversation is talking about kissing between the opposite sexes. If a husband kisses his wife or his sister, his daughter, his mother, grandmother, right? Is there a wudu necessary because of kissing? Does kissing some individuals necessitate a wudu while others does not? And this topic, for those who are following the series, we've covered it previously in the book Al-Awsat, the statement of the scholars regarding this issue and its connection to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, or if you've caressed or touched women. And here, what is the meaning of touched women? While perhaps the stronger view is that the meaning of touched women is had sexual intercourse. Others hold the view that the meaning of touched women is to simply touch them and to come into contact skin to skin with them. And we mentioned the statements of the scholars regarding this in that section. Here today we have some of the athar that have been related from these various salaf, from the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and the Atba' al-Tabi'een regarding this matter. The Shaykh al-Shithri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he introduces this topic by talking about the view of the four madhahib regarding this issue. What is the view of the four madhahib regarding kissing the opposite sex, or even more generally, touching the opposite sex? Kissing just being one aspect of how touching can occur. And so the Shaykh, hafidhahullah ta'ala, he said, قال الشافعي مس المرأة ناقض مطلقا وقال أبو حنيفة لا ينقض وقال مالك وأحمد ينقض إذا كان بشهوة وهذا القول أرجح. Shaykh al-Shithri, he says that al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that touching the woman is something that negates the wudu in all circumstances, right? Without exception or restriction. Touching the woman absolutely negates or nullifies one's purity. He says, while Abu Hanifa, he says it does not nullify one's purity. As far as Malik and Ahmed, then they say that it nullifies the purity if it is with desire. And Ash-Shithri, hafidhahullah ta'ala, he says that this is the stronger or the more preponderant view. And we encourage people to go back to that section of Al-Awsat if they want to see the details regarding this topic. Now, in any circumstance, Abu Bakr, rahimahullah ta'ala, he brings these following narrations. He says, حدثنا وكيع بن الجراح قال حدثنا الأعمش عن حبيب بن أبي ثابت عن عروة عن عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قبل بعض النساء ثم خرج إلى الصلاة ولم يتوضأ فقلت من هي إلا أنت فضحكت. Abu Bakr, he says that Waki' ibn al-Jarrah narrated to us. He said that Al-A'mash narrated to us on the authority of Habib ibn Abi Thabit, on the authority of Urwa, on the authority of Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, on the authority of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or she said about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he kissed some of his wives and then he went to salah and he did not make a wudu. And so Urwa said, who is she other than you? Talking to his aunt Aisha, who was she other than you? And to this, Aisha laughed. She laughed when he said that. So this is a narration that those who say that it is not necessary use as one of their stronger evidences that the Prophet ﷺ kissed his wives or some of his wives without remaking a wudu. So if the contact was something that necessitated wudu, then the Prophet ﷺ would have done so in this circumstance. Also, they say that the kiss between a husband and a wife, it is inherent that it contains desire. And so this is even something that they use as a refutation of those who say that there's a difference between if it was done with desire or done without desire. While those who say that it is a difference if it is with desire or without desire, they say that this kiss was a kiss of mercy and not a kiss of desire. Just, like a peck or something where there's no arousal inherent in it. But this is the narration, and the narration is clear that the Prophet ﷺ, he went to salat without making wudu after kissing some of his wives. نعم. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا هشام بن بشير عن الأعمش عن حبيب عن سعيد بن جبير عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنه وحجاج عن عطاء عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما أنه كان لا يرى في القبلة وضوء. Abu Bakr, he says that Hushaym ibn Bashir narrated to us on the authority of Al-A'mash, on the authority of Habib, on the authority of Sa'id ibn Jubair, on the authority of Ibn Abbas, as well as Hajjaj on the authority of Ata, on the authority of Ibn Abbas, that i.e. Ata and Sa'id said that Ibn Abbas, he used to not see the necessity of wudu because of kissing. He used to not see wudu necessary because of kissing. لا يرى كان أنه كان لا يرى في القبلة وضوء. He used to not see there being any wudu necessary because of kissing. Abu Bakr, he says حدثنا وكيع عن سفيان عن عبد الكريم عن عطاء أنه قال ليس في القبلة وضوء. Abu Bakr, he says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Sufyan. Like we mentioned before, when it's Waki' ibn al-Jarrah on Sufyan, then it is Sufyan al-Thawri. More often than not, Sufyan al-Thawri on the authority of Abdul Karim, on the authority of Ata, who said that there is no wudu necessary because of kissing. Ata ibn Abi Rabah, there is no wudu necessary because of kissing. Naam. He says حدثنا حشيم قال أخبرنا يونس أن الحسن أنه كان لا يرى في القبلة وضوءا. He says that Hushaym narrated to us, he said that Yunus informed us on the authority of Al-Hasan that he used to not see there being any wudu necessary because of kissing. Hasan al-Basri had the view that there was no wudu necessary because of kissing. He says حدثنا حميد ابن عبد الرحمن عن حسن بن صالح عن أبيه عن الشعبي عن مسلم بن حيان عن مسروق أنه قال ما أبالي قبلتها أو قبلت يدي. He says that Humayd ibn Abd al-Rahman narrated to us on the authority of Hassan ibn Salih, on the authority of his father, on the authority of Ash-Sha'bi, rahimahullah, on the authority of Muslim ibn Hayyan, on the authority of Masruq, who said, I don't care if I kiss her or if I kiss my own hand. It makes no difference to me if I were to kiss a woman or if I were to kiss my own hand, i.e. there's no wudu necessary because of that. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا وكيع عن سفيان عن أبي روق عن إبراهيم التيمي عن عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قبل ثم صلى ولم يتوضأ. He says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Sufyan, on the authority of Abi Rawq, on the authority of Ibrahim al-Taymi, on the authority of Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he kissed and then he prayed and he did not make a wudu. The Prophet kissed some of his women, and then he offered salat and he did not make a wudu to do so. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا وكيع عن إسرائيل عن جابر عن أبي جعفر أنه قال ليس في القبلة وضوء. He says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Israel, on the authority of Jabir, on the authority of Abi Ja'far, who said there is no wudu necessary for kissing. So these are some of the individuals that he mentioned who held the view that it is not necessary to make a wudu because of kissing. From them being Aisha, or the action of the Prophet, and Aisha, and Ibn Abbas, and Atta, and Masruq, and other than them. And so that's the first opinion, that there is no wudu necessary for kissing, and even more generally touching. The next chapter, he says, Man qala fiha al-wudu. Those who say that there is a wudu necessary for kissing. Those who say that there is a wudu necessary for kissing. He says, حدثنا عبدة بن سليمان عن عبيد الله بن عمر عن الزهري عن سالم عن ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما أنه كان يرى القبلة من اللمس ويأمر منها بالوضوء. Abu Bakr says that Abdatu bin Sulaiman narrated to us on the authority of Ubaydullah bin Umar, on the authority of Az-Zuhri, on the authority of Salim, on the authority of Ibn Umar, that he used to, Ibn Umar used to see kissing as being part of the touching, and he used to command that a wudu be made because of it. Ibn Umar, he used to consider that kissing was from the touching that Allah mentioned in the Quran, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, and thus he would command that one make a wudu because of it. This is a narration on Ibn Umar. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا حفص وهشيم and الأعمش and Ibrahim and Abi Ubaidah and Abi Abidah قال عبد الله القبلة من اللمس ومنها الوضوء. He says that Hafs and Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Al-A'mash, on the authority of Ibrahim, on the authority of Abi Abidah. Is it Abi Abidah al-Salmani or Abu Ubaidah? I only know it to be Abi Abidah al-Salmani, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i. Ibrahim al-Nakha'i. Ibrahim ibn Yazid al-Nakha'i. Ibn Yazid al-Nakha'i. No, he narrated on Abi Ubaidah ibn Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abi Ubaidah ibn Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abi Ubaidah ibn Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. No. So this narration, he says that Hafs narrated to us, as well as Hushaym, on the authority of Al-A'mash, on the authority of Ibrahim, on the authority of Abi Ubaidah, who said that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said that kissing is from touching and it necessitates a wudu. From it, there is a wudu is necessary. Because of it, a wudu is necessary. He says, حدثنا Hushaym and Mughira and Ibrahim قال إذا قبل بشهوة نقض الوضوء. He says that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Mughira, on the authority of Ibrahim, who said if an individual kisses with desire, then that nullifies his wudu. And so here we have the statement of Ibrahim differentiating between the absolute state, like was mentioned by Ibn Umar ibn Mas'ud, and between the absolute non-nullification that was mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Aisha. And he has the statement here that is support of what Malik and Imam Ahmed went to in this issue, that if an individual kisses with desire, then that nullifies the wudu. He says, حدثنا وكيع عن سفيان and عطاء بن السائب and الشعبي مثله. He says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Sufyan, on the authority of Atta bin Sa'ib, on the authority of a Sha'bi, who said something similar. So Ash-Sha'bi had a similar statement. He said, حدثنا هشيم ووكيع عن زكريا and Ash-Sha'bi مثله. And then he mentions another chain. He says that Hushaym narrated to us as well as Waki' on the authority of Zakaria, on the authority of Ash-Sha'bi, a similar statement, i.e. that kissing with desire nullifies the wudu. He says, حدثنا وكيع عن عبد العزيز بن عبد الله أنه قال سألت الزهري عن القبلة فقال كان العلماء يقولون فيها الوضوء. He says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah, who said that I asked Az-Zuhri about kissing, and he said that the scholars, they used to say that it necessitates a wudu. So this is the statement of Az-Zuhri, and when he says the scholars, he's talking about the tabi'een, his teachers, the elders from the tabi'een and the sahaba. And so he's saying that the scholars, they used to say regarding it that it necessitates a wudu. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا غندر and Shu'bah and Al-Hakim wa Hammad قال إن قبل أو لمس فعليه الوضوء. Gundar narrated to us on the authority of Shu'bah, on the authority of Al-Hakim, as well as Hammad. The two of them said, if he kisses or touches, then upon him is to make a wudu. It is incumbent upon him to make a wudu. He says, حدثنا ابن فضيل and ابن شبرمة and الشعبي أنه قال القبلة تنقض الوضوء. He said that Ibn Fudayl narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Shubrumah, on the authority of Ash-Sha'bi, who said that kissing nullifies the wudu. He says, حدثنا جرير and Mughira and Hammad قال إذا قبل الرجل امرأته وهي لا تريد ذلك فإنما يجب عليه الوضوء وليس عليها الوضوء فإن قبلته هي إنما يجب الوضوء عليها ولا يجب عليه وإن وجد شهوة وجب عليه الوضوء وإن قبلها وهي لا تريد ذلك فوجدت شهوة وجب عليها الوضوء. Here, Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman, the teacher of Abu Hanifa, he has some additional statements. He says, as Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba mentions, that Jarir narrated to us on the authority of Mughira, on the authority of Hammad, yani Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman, who said that if a man kisses a woman, or his woman, his wife, and she does not want that, she didn't ask for it, she's not, it wasn't by her request. She didn't want him to kiss her, right? He just kissed her, and it wasn't something that they were mutually engaged in. Then he says, then the wudu is necessary upon him, and there is no wudu necessary upon her. And if she kisses herself, meaning if she kisses him, then the wudu is necessary upon her, and there is no wudu necessary upon him. But if that sparks some arousal in him, if her kissing him sparks some arousal or desire, then wudu becomes obligatory upon him. And if he kisses her, even if she didn't want it, but it sparks some arousal in her, if it sparks some desire, she finds desire and arousal because of his kissing, then it becomes necessary upon her to make wudu. This was the statement of Hammad ibn Abi Sulaiman. And all I can do is like defer or refer back to the statements of Ibn al-Mundhir fil Awsat, which he often mentions. And perhaps that all of these different views about kissing and touching and do they nullify or not show the weakness in this issue. Even though the Shaykh Rahimahullah Shithri said that this is the more stronger issue, the differentiating because of desire, it would seem that the people who say that there is a wudu necessary don't have as much to rely on as the people who say there is no wudu necessary. He says, حدثنا أبو معاوية قال حدثنا الحسن بن عمرو عن فضيل عن إبراهيم أنه قال لامرأتي أما إني أحمد الله يا هنيدة لولا أن أحدث وضوءا لقبلتك. He says that Abu Muawiyah narrated to us, he said that Al-Hasan ibn Amr narrated to us on the authority of Fudayl, on the authority of Ibrahim, that he said to his wife or his woman, as far as myself, then I praise Allah, O Hunayda. And if it wasn't for the fact that I would need to remake a wudu, I would have kissed you. Right? Lola an ahdutha wudu'an laqabbaltuki. If it wasn't for the fact that I would need to remake a wudu, or it would cause me to make a wudu, I would have kissed you. Right? And so this shows that Ibrahim an-Nakha'i held the view, as we mentioned earlier, that kissing necessitates a wudu, even if he differentiated between that which is done with desire and that which is not. So these are the statements of the people who say that kissing does necessitate a wudu. Ibn Umar and Ibn Mas'ud and Ibrahim an-Nakha'i, and other than them from the Tabi'een and the Atba' al-Tabi'een. A chapter that is similar to this and relevant to this is the chapter of kissing youth, kissing somebody young, a young child. If we say touching a woman and kissing a woman nullifies the wudu, what if it's a father kissing his daughter? Does that nullify as well? And so this is what caused some of the Salaf to differentiate in this issue. Those who said that kissing the opposite sex does necessitate a wudu. And so Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shaybah, he has a chapter, fi qublat as-sabi, chapter regarding kissing a child. And so he says, حدثنا ابن علي and Ayyub and Nafi' and Ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه أنه قبل صبيا فمضمض. He says that Ibn Ulayya narrated to us on the authority of Ayyub, on the authority of Nafi', on the authority of Ibn Umar, that Ibn Umar kissed a young child and then he washed his mouth out. And so Ibn Umar was from the people that said you had to make a wudu, but when kissing this young child, he didn't make a full wudu, he just washed his mouth out. He says, حدثنا ابن علي and Ibn Aoun and Nafi' أن ابن عمر توضأ فقبل بنية له فدعا بماء فتمضمض. He says that Ibn Ulayya narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Aoun, on the authority of Nafi', that Ibn Umar, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he made a wudu, and then he kissed a young girl, a young daughter of his, and then he requested that some water be brought, and he washed his mouth out. Tamadmad. He says, حدثنا Hushaym and Yahya and Nafi' and Ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه ورضي الله تعالى عنهما أنه كان إذا قبل الصبي مضمض فاه ولم يتوضأ. He says that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Yahya, on the authority of Nafi', on the authority of Ibn Umar, that if he kissed a young child, he would wash his mouth out and he would not make a wudu. He would not make a wudu. And so, he says, حدثنا Hushaym and Mughira and Ibrahim أنه قال أن مغيرة أن إبراهيم قال يعني مغيرة سألته عن قبلة الصبي بعد الوضوء فقال إنما تلك رحمة لا وضوء فيها. He says that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Mughira, who said about Ibrahim, he said, I asked him, Mughira asked Ibrahim about kissing a young child after making wudu. And so Ibrahim, he said, Ibrahim an-Nakha'i, he said that is out of mercy, and there is no wudu necessary for it. And so this aligns with the statement of Ibrahim in the previous chapter, that kissing out of desire necessitates a wudu. And so this is what they use, those who distinguish between the kissing of desire and the kissing that is void of desire. Does it necessitate a wudu or does it not? And like we say, those who want more detail, then upon them is to go back to like Al-Awsat or the different books of the Islamic law, the different books of the Madhahib, to get a more general or a more specific understanding. Now, the next chapter is similarly related as well. He says it's the chapter Fil Wudu Min Al-Lams, chapter regarding wudu because of touching. If we talked about the generalness of kissing, wudu because of kissing, then what about touching? And like we said, this is things that we've discussed before in other sections, but it's one of those things that it can kind of show the weakness of this approach or this opinion because of the extra details that the people make in establishing this principle. Kissing an adult, kissing a child, touching with the palm of your hand, the back of your hand, touching with desire, touching without desire. Where are these stipulations in the religion? Especially when we say that perhaps the stronger view is the view of Ibn Abbas when he talks about the meaning of la mastumun nisa, is that it is intercourse. And so if that is the case, then there is no evidence to support an obligation of wudu because of touching, kissing between the opposite sexes, even if there is desire. Now, some of the people who say that there is kissing, if there is a wudu necessary because of desire, they say that this is because perhaps desire causes pre-cum to excrete out of the private part. And it could be, and this is normal, that for a penis to get erect or for the vaginal area to become moist, that pre-cum secretes out of those areas. And so they say that for you to be aroused, if there was desire, then this is the natural thing. If you found yourself erect or moist, then this would be a sign that this fluid has come out of your private part. And so if you kissed in a way that caused this to come out, then without a doubt, the secretion of pre-cum nullifies the wudu. But the argument on the counter side is, if you know for sure pre-cum has come out, then yes, your wudu is nullified. But as far as if you are just suspicious or you assume that pre-cum has secreted out, then the foundation is to build on what you know for sure. And just because erections or a woman getting aroused is a likely place that pre-cum would be present at, it does not necessitate it. So a person has to know for sure before we can remove the purity that we know of for sure. And so this is why they still disagree. But there could be some view or some strength to the view that kissing and touching with desire necessitates a wudu, not in and of itself, but because of the existence or the excretion of pre-cum or al-wadi in that situation. And so if we know for sure that al-wad came out or pre-cum has come out, then we say, yes, for sure the wudu is nullified. And if we don't know for sure, then this is where the place of disagreement is. So this is the same conversation regarding a man and a woman touching. And so Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, he says, Fil wudu'i min al-lams. This chapter is related to a wudu being necessary because of touching. And so he says, حدثنا حشيم قال أخبرنا مغيرة أن إبراهيم قال إذا لمس أو قبل بشهوة نقض الوضوء. He says that Hushaym narrated to us, he said that Mughira informed us on the authority of Ibrahim, who said, if he touches or kisses with desire, that nullifies the wudu. If a man touches or kisses with desire, then that nullifies the wudu. He says, حدثنا Hushaym قال أخبرنا زكريا عن الشعبي مثله. And so this is a repetition of the previous chapter, right? He said that Hushaym narrated to us, who said that Zakaria informed us on the authority of a Sha'bi with a similar statement. Abu Bakr, he says that حدثنا بن علي and Hisham الدستوائي and Hamad and Ibrahim أنه قال إذا قبلت أو لمست أو باشرت أو إذا قبلت أو لمست أو باشرت فأعد الوضوء. Abu Bakr says that Ibn Ulayya narrated to us on the authority of Hisham al-Dastiwai, on the authority of Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, on the authority of Ibrahim, yani al-Nakha'i, who said that if you kiss or if you touch or if you caress and come in skin to skin contact, then repeat the wudu. Then repeat your wudu. Abu Bakr says, حدثنا غندر and شعبة and الحكم وحماد قال إذا لمس فعليه الوضوء. Abu Bakr said that Gundar narrated to us on the authority of Shu'bah, on the authority of Al-Hakam and Hamad, the two of whom said, if he touches, then upon him is to make a wudu. If he touches, then it is necessary upon him to make a wudu. He says, حدثنا Hushaym قال أخبرنا يونس and Al-Hasan أنه كان لا يرى في اللمس باليد وضوءا. Abu Bakr says that Hushaym narrated to us, he said that Yunus informed us on the authority of Al-Hasan that he used to not see an obligation of wudu because of touching with the hand. Al-Hasan used to not see there being any obligation for wudu because of touching with the hand. And this lines up with the view of Al-Hasan al-Basri, similar to that in kissing, which we've talked about. He said, حدثنا محمد بن عبد الله الأسدي عن إسرائيل عن عبد الأعلى عن عبد الرحمن بن أبي ليلى أنه قال إذا لمس الرجل امرأته بشهوة توضأ ما لم ينزل. He says that Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Asadi narrated to us on the authority of Israel, on the authority of Abdul A'la, on the authority of Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Layla, who said that if a man touches his woman with desire, then he must make wudu, or he should make wudu as long as he does not ejaculate. If he ejaculates, then he must make a ghusl. And like we say here, those who differentiate, the only, or should we say the strongest support of their differentiation is that the wudu is not necessary because of the act of touching, but because of the desire. And the desire is a likely place to find the secretion of pre-cum. And so for that reason, they make it necessary upon the one who makes or who touches with desire. And this is what we talk about: caressing, fondling, foreplay, getting into the mood. Those things come, generally speaking, with the secretion of pre-cum from the man and the woman. This is how they get in that aroused state. And since that aroused state usually is the result of the secretion of this pre-cum, then they say, therefore, it is necessary to make wudu. And that's logical. But it also goes back to the conversation of, do you know for sure that it was secreted? Right? If you check your undergarments, for example, and you don't see any traces, and you don't see any, moisture, or the woman doesn't have any moisture, then that is a different conversation. But those who say that it's necessary because of desire, some of them might say that it is still necessary to make wudu because you're not sure, while others would say no, because you're not sure, you base on certainty. And so all of these are things that require more insight and research, but this is just the section of the book that deals with this topic regarding contact between the opposite sexes, and when or if does that necessitate a purification. And as we said, this conversation has been had previously in Al-Awsat with a little bit more detail, but here the intent was just to mention the statements of the Salaf who supported it one way or another. And so we mentioned Ibn Abbas and Aisha, who said there's no wudu, and we mentioned Ibn Umar and Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who said there is a wudu. And we mentioned from the Tabi'een those who differentiated between desire or lack of desire. And so those are the three general statements in this issue: absolutely yes, absolutely no, yes with desire. And for more detail, you can refer back to what was previously transmitted from the book Al-Awsat. Now, inshallah, next time we'll pick up with the chapter in this book, Fil Wudu'i min Luhum al-Ibl, those narrations that relate to the obligation of making wudu because of camel's meat, and all that is surrounding that issue. We'll suffice ourselves with that amount today. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. And once again, I encourage to connect these chapters together, right? Re-review, if you're following along in this series, the chapter of in Al-Awsat that deals with the contact between the opposite sexes, so you can see the difference or the more detailed Islamic jurisprudence approach, the more detailed fiqh approach that was carried out by Ibn al-Mundhir, and the more scholastical hadith approach that was carried out by Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba. So they had different agendas, but the two chapters go together, and it gives you a solid foundation in that issue. And Allah knows best. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.